the sources. I'm not saying to anybody's interpretation. There's no room for interpretation here. It's just what are the sources saying? He's a laystes,
which is a pimp,
which is basically a trafficker. Yeah.
Which was looked down upon, which was frowned upon back then.
Because it's an active, organized crime. He says, why did you come out here? Why did you come out here with all your heavy weapons like I'm a laystes?
Right.
Right? And notice that the Phoenicians are inhabitants, of course, Phoenicia. Thank you very much. Their chief city being Sidon. They appear in Homer as traders, skillful in navigation, famous alike for artistic skill and for privacy? No. Piracy. Are you kidding? Wait, what? You mean like Johnny Depp? No. They're known for taking the booty. The lace. These are lacei? Yes, these are the pirates. The Phoenicians, people, they're the drug traders of antiquity. Isn't that nice? They're groups of drug traders. Yeah, they traffic. That's why they're called pirates. Fantastic. Keep going. And just in case you thought, this is a little bit of, we're talking about the Phoenicians who this character who's Odysseus is saying, look, I had to do certain things and I had to deal with these Phoenician sailors, you know what I mean? And what happened? I gave them Leida. What do you have to give to the Phoenicians to pacify them? You have to give them the booty. Now, sometimes that booty is kids. Yeah. Sorry, but that's a fact.
Where?
When Jesus Christ says, I am not a laystes, after they arrest him in a public park with a naked kid, it's because the booty is the kid. That's just coming right out of the text, people. That's it. It's just right out of the text.
I also asked Dan on the podcast, I asked him if the two guys that were crucified on each side of Jesus were laystes.
He says that the word laystes means human trafficker. Why is this guy saying I'm not a laystes, which means I'm not a human trafficker, when this boy is with him and the boy runs away? And then he goes and he says the next day he's crucified in between two other laystes. He says the guys that were crucified next to him were human traffickers.
The word that they use to describe the criminals, I think in the later text it calls them thieves, but they're brigands. Oh, it's sedition that was punishable by
sedition
crucifixion. Yeah.
What does that mean?
So that's trying to revolt against the state. They would have been people who were probably revolutionaries or people who were attacking the Roman rulers or things like that. I don't think I know of any New Testament scholars who would agree that the other two people crucified alongside of Jesus were human traffickers.
Mm.
Mark confirms that Barabbas was a rebel, stasiastis, who had committed murder in the revolt, antistasi. He does not call Barabbas a listis. Instead, he calls the two rebels who were crucified with Jesus, liste. And this is confirmed in the Gospel of John that explicitly refers to Barabbas as a listis. The Gospel of Matthew also calls the two men crucified next to Jesus liste, which can be translated as rebels. In Luke, you can see that the parable of the Good Samaritan also involves liste. And we can see in this parable what they're up to. They stripped him and beat him and went away, leaving him half dead. You know what they didn't do? They didn't traffic him. It's very clear in this context what is meant by the word listis. Luke specifies that Jesus was brought to him as if he is inciting the people to revolt. Os apostrefodaton laon. Again, we see os here being used as a counterfactual. It's as if he were inciting the people to revolt, but in reality, he wasn't, because he says, I have found no basis at all in the case of this man for the charges which you are bringing against him. What were those charges? Inciting the people to revolt.
Not sex trafficking.
In John 10, Jesus characterizes robbers in the same terms as thieves. So he says, the one who does not enter by the door into the fold of the sheep, but climbs up some other way, he is a thief and a robber. Ekinos kleptis estin ke listis. And then later on, he uses the exact same words in the plural. All those who came before me, prior to me, are thieves and robbers. Klepteisin ke liste.
He pulled out a lexicon, a New Testament lexicon, which is
it's a different lexicon.
Yeah, which is like pulling out a landmine. Imagine if we define the field by if the thieves get to write everything, right? That's basically what the New Testament lexicon is.
Robber, highwayman, bandit, revolutionary, insurrectionist, guerrilla. So I think that second sense, revolutionary, insurrectionist, that's the kind of sense that could merit crucifixion.
Oh, that's not even here. You said...
Yeah, where did you find the revolutionary?
So I'm looking in what scholars affectionately know as BDAG, which is a Greek English lexicon of the New Testament and other early Christian literature. So it isolates the usage of these words within early Christian literature to show how they're being used in those contexts.
Yeah, but wouldn't that kind of be a biased translation? If Jesus is saying he's not a laistes, they wouldn't want Jesus to be saying he's not a
You could tell he's already been
predator.
trained by Ammon.
Yeah.
They would want him to be saying he's not a revolutionary.
Yeah, so go watch the Cross Bible documentary on lexicography to learn more about the BDAG lexicon.
Is the absolute perfect illustration, right? What he's doing by saying, he's picking one of the minor definitions, it shows, number one, they're kindergarten, they don't understand how to use a lexicon. Number two, it shows that they don't have a knowledge of anything outside of their primary core, which is the New Testament. Because the perfect example is you could say, what Ammon is doing is he's picking a very, very, obscure meaning of laistes. And that obscure meaning is a child trafficker, right? Just like they do with the sindone. The bandage that was wrapped on the child's private parts in the Garden of Gethsemane with Jesus Christ in Mark 14 and 51 and 52, that was a garment. And Ammon is saying it's a very specialized bandage. And of course, that's a medical term. So we have an entire document by Lucian that defines what a laistes is. It's if Kip Davis really wants to get to the reality of the text, he should go read Lucian. And when Lucian defines, in the very beginning of the work, he says, it's in Alexander the False Prophet. If Kip really wants to find that real history, let him read Lucian. Let him read the sources. In just the very first few paragraphs, he says, hey, this time I'm going to talk about one of the terrible types of people, the laistes. And from then on, it's just page after page of a portrait of what Jesus was saying he wasn't. Happens to be a religious dude involved with drugs and children. Surprise.
That is a crazy text. That is a crazy text.
In Lucian's Alexander the False Prophet, we certainly get a really good picture of how he characterizes Alexander as a listis. He's a fraud. He's a charlatan, he's a manipulator, he exploits people's gullibility for personal gain, and the text focuses on his prophecies and his staged miracles and his manipulative charisma, but nowhere in it is it really describing anything that Hillman is making it out to seem like. There is no trafficking of children here. It does say that Alexander prostituted himself, eporneve, and it provides us with a very good description of how somebody wears a girdle around their private parts. And it describes how a young man, Neaniskos, perished at the hands of brigands, liste. He wasn't trafficked by them, he was seemingly murdered by them.
There was a certain guy who happened to be there. I'm translating. One of the dudes that was rescued happened to be there, and he announced to Abraham the Perate. Look at the bottom line. First word, Perate. What is Abraham? He is a Perate. Are you ready? Well, here, show me. What is that? What is that? Hesychius, thank you for coming up. This is Hesychius. What is that? Pirata is pirata. I told you long time ago. This is how Greek works. And the vowels, they'll change from region to region. These are equivalents. Those vowels are only tuning that root. The root is already there. And what is the root? Perates. The root is, look at, you can find it in the verb from perao. From perao. And this thing, wanderer, immigrant, and look at the spot, second to last line in Genesis is where we're talking about. It says this is the explanation of Ibraios.
Yeah, he doesn't even realize.
Ibraios.
They don't realize.
Hebrew.
He's an immigrant.
Give me the next one.
Yeah.
What is the verb that
Nomad.
that is the action that Abraham is doing? To carry beyond the seas for the purpose of selling, to export for sale. What is he exporting? Kitties.
Oh,
Kitties. Children. Oh my God, are you kidding me? Look, keep going. Oh, there he is, marching along, right? We're talking about traders, right? Traders. Pirates. What did Abraham purvey? What did he purvey? He purveyed underage people for intercourse or beating up. Look at those last three words. Who is Abraham? He's a pirate. Give me the next. Now, what is the Hebrew? What is the Hebrew, which we know, congregation, is a translation or an attempt. It's not a translation. It's a fabrication off of the 3rd century Septuagint, which is in Greek. So what did those zealots who were peddling lies and taking dead language and trying to reconstruct something, what are they doing? You know, they're out in the Qumran, man. What are they doing? Look at they're making words like Ibri. Watch this, people. What are these piratoi, right? Kakurgoi. They're people who do bad things. They're leistai. They're traffickers in humanity. And what do? Oh, God, look at this last. You're going to love this if you're part of some Save the Children movement or something, probably. Theireutai in hulasi. What do? They're predators on the waters. Predators on the waters. Do you know how they get from one place to another? It's those ships, they come in and then raid. They just raid. They don't belong to a polis. They belong to a gang.
They're pirates.
Abraham was the head of a gang that traded in children. And I want you to see it in the Greek. This is unmistakably, very simply translated. Abram toi perate. Abraham the trafficker. Congratulations. He made a lot of cash and coin. He made a lot of cash and coin. Let's see what he does. Did we see him getting into ecstasy before? We saw him getting high.
The term peratis, wanderer, is derived from the verb perao, to cross or pass through. It denotes boundary crossing, like applied to ferrymen or wanderers or sojourners or emigrants. This is clearly reflected in the lexicon when it comes to the LXX usage of peratis to refer to Abraham. Piratis has a different vowel. It comes from pirao, to attempt or attack. Piratis is a completely different term than peratis. The vowels matter here. The verb pernimi comes from a distinct root unrelated to perao or pirao. Pernimi and perao are not etymologically connected. The verb pernimi has an etymology that is separate from peratis. Perao can refer to exporting for sale because pernao means transport or export. This can refer to trade or trafficking in captives, but in specific contexts. It's not encoded in the verb itself. Lia refers to booty, which is spoils of war. The noun listis is a derivative of the noun lia because it conveys the idea of robbery or piracy. It's emphasizing the criminality of stealing booty. There is a valid connection between listis and piratis. Listis encompasses broad robbery, which can be on land or at sea. Piratis is more specifically referring to maritime piracy. And it is not in any way, shape, or form related to peratis, which is wanderer or immigrant. A Greek speaker would understand that these are separate words that are not related simply because they sound similar. The entries in Hesychius's lexicon make this absolutely clear. Lia refers to spoils or booty from war. Liis is possession from spoils. Liste are pirates and those made so from plunder. For Hesychius, liste and pirate are more or less synonymous. Liste can refer to pirates who are made so from the plunder, from the lia. Peras is a separate word that means end or resolution or boundary. That's where we get peratis. Pirata is synonymous with perata. Pirate are effectively liste on the water. And pirate comes from pirazi, which is to test or to pirate. So that got into the weeds, but the point here is that like whenever you see Hillman pop up something on the screen that's zoomed in really, really, really close,
Yeah.
it's usually because there's something off to the right or below it, or there's something around the border of what he's cropping that doesn't fit his narrative, right? Or like it refutes him altogether. So it's like he has to zoom in. He reaches for Hesychius's lexicon, which is like a little outdated, but whatever. He shows that the word peras, end, perata, like the peratatis, like the ends of the earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then pirata, like one of them is an epsilon and the other is e or an epsilon iota. And because he has a whole theory that I cut out of this video about how Greek vowels don't matter and you can just kill the vowels and the vowels are quote unquote tuners. He has a whole theory that I just I didn't want to bog this down and all that stuff.
Right.
He just uses that to go hog wild on just saying to conclude that because the text says that Abraham was a peratis because he's a wanderer, it's kind of sounds like trafficker. Why don't we just run with this and say he's a trafficker? How he expects people to take him seriously is like beyond me. Like this is absolute. Like this is totally crank. This is totally crank.
Right. Of course.
This is made clear in the entries of pera and peras from Beckus. A peratis is a ferryman, also a stranger or an emigrant as used in the Septuagint with respect to Abraham. Peratikos is foreign. The noun pirar refers to the end or boundary or outcome, goal, decision. The noun pira is associated with test, research, experience. There are 3 derivations, one of which is the verb piraume, which is where we get piratis, pirate. Beckus affirms that lia refers to booty or spoils, and that is the word that spawns all of the different derivations, including listis. The verb listevo is to rob or plunder, or listia is the noun for robbery. If lia is ever used in the context of human trafficking, then it would be context specific. BDAG affirms that listis is used in Christian literature to refer to robbers or bandits, and the number 2 definition shows revolutionary, insurrectionist, and guerrilla, because that is how it is defined in all of these examples in the Gospels. And it confirms that more precise definitions depend on assessment of social banditry.
Here's the definition of leistes, right? It's from Leidzo, for those of you who are in Greek, right? Good. And notice that they first give you robber or pirate, right? And you think to yourself, wait a minute, pirate? Jesus is saying, what you guys come out here so heavily armed like I'm a pirate? right? Oh, well, what does that mean? Well, it's especially somebody at sea. So there's some kind of sea connection here. That's where we're getting pirate, brigand, buccaneer, right? Buccaneer. Later, pirates. Now you know where you get the word pirate from. Yeah, but what are these? Shiver me timbers? These aren't the guys that make Johnny Depp look good. This is not that kind of a pirate, right? These are suckers. Chewy, bring up that same. Look at the very bottom. Used by Lycophron. Who is Lycophron? Lycophron is the poet who is preserving the song of Cassandra. Yeah, the song of Cassandra, who is the Bacchic Sibyl. You'll notice there in that Lycophron that we have a reference to child abduction, groups of traffickers who will sail into a port, jump off the ship armed with enough force to overwhelm the local authorities and take prisoner young men and young women, boys and girls. And if this kind of thing, why do they take them? To take them somewhere and traffic them, to sell them, right? I wanted to show you a little bit of the prophecy of Cassandra, and I wanted you to see there's some lovely imagery there and some talk of what you can do with your daughters. You can dedicate your daughters to the temple and they'll be protected. And we as members of the community who worship Hecate and protect those virgins, we take up weapons, stones, bows against those pirates who we catch with our children. It turns out the chief pirate is the Son of God.
The LSJ entry is pointing right here, where Cassandra prophesies the consequences of the crime committed by Ajax the Lesser, describing him as Kypridos listis theas, pirate of the Cyprian goddess. This metaphor depicts Ajax as a plunderer of sacred principles, particularly in his desecration of Cassandra, a supplicant at Athena's temple. Ajax's act offended Aphrodite for violating Cassandra's chastity and disrupting divine laws of love and purity. It also offended Athena for defiling her sanctuary and betraying her role as the protector of supplicants. This hubris led directly to the divine punishment of the Locrian maidens, who were sent as perpetual scapegoats to atone for his sacrilege. There is no human trafficking going on in this text, and listis is used in this text metaphorically, which is backed up by the LSJ.
Eustathius is using his own sources from antiquity that nobody else around him is availing themselves of. He says right here, I just wanted to bring it up for you. He says, look, this is the very rise of Greek culture. It comes through the Leistes, comes through Leistea. This is Greek culture. If you don't understand what that is, go find out. For the satanic congregation,
That's what I was trying
me.
to get at. Like,
hear me when I
this is Greek
talk
culture.
about the
He's all about
Hellenes. Know who
The
they
Hellenes.
are and where they came from. Indo-European. Ha.
Eustathius's commentary on the Odyssey distinguishes sea robbers from land robbers. He highlights that Homer's phrase, they roam over the sea, clarifies that these are pirates, not land-based listē. Eustathius confirmed that plundering was not frowned upon in ancient sources the way it was in his day. He explicitly says that living by warfare and piracy was most noble, and he indicates that the livelihood of the Greeks at this time came from this kind of plundering activity. But he mentions that Aristarchus deemed piracy to be base. And Eustathius explains various associations between Achilles and Athena and brigandry because of their connection to the root liis.
I just want to show you quickly. This is the passage that talks about, this is Plutarch talking about Julius Caesar. When he was 25 years old, he got captured by Lacetae, and what they do to him, they held him for ransom, and then he sailed. As soon as he got the ransom, he sailed away, got a Roman fleet, came back, took him captive, took back all his ransom, and then crucified him, every one of them. But that's what he told him he was going to do when he was being held captive. They held him for 38 days, and he was not a happy camper. Hear the text. Look at the second line. They capture him around the island called Drug Island. And it says he's captured by Peraton. Now you see the word. You say, wait a minute. Ammon, you told me it was Laestes. It is. Just wait. You told me it was Laestes and it's Peraton. This is where we get our word pirate. And at this time that Plutarch is writing this, they're transitioning from a Laestes to a Peraton. They're changing the terminology. Watch. Here it is. Look at the Perates. What is it? It's a brigand. It's a pirate. Look at the last line though, Danny. It says later. It's a later word for a Laestes. And the person, look at the name at the bottom.
Ammon.
Yes. That is the dude. That is the dude who showed Plutarch exactly what was going on. Linguistically, he's a mathematician and all this kind of stuff. Crazy dude, right? Okay, now watch what happens, though. You're going to say, wait a minute, Peraton, that's not enough. Give me the last one. Look at this, Danny. Look at the second line. This is in the same passage of Plutarch, and it says, this is in his biography of Julius Caesar. And when is he writing? Right around 110 AD. Right. So he is completely contemporary, Danny, which you pointed out in your interview. He is completely contemporary with the writing of the New Testament. So his terms are the New Testament terms. And you'll see in the second line, who are these pirates? They're Laestas. They're Laestas. And this is where it says Julius Caesar gathers them all up. He gathers them together and he anestauros in them. He crucifies them.
In Plutarch's biography of Caesar, we see a clear association between listis and piratis, between brigandry, banditry, robbery, and piracy. He starts by describing the pirates who staged a naval blockade and captured the young Caesar. They weren't trafficking him. This was kidnap and ransom. After they secured the ransom and gave Caesar back, they are referred to by Plutarch as liste, brigands. This is a general reference to their criminality because they received the booty or the ransom, litra, for kidnapping Caesar. But then Plutarch conveys the irony that Caesar took the money that they made from the ransom and made that his booty, lian. So in effect, Caesar has become a listis. And then when Caesar crucifies these pirates, he refers to them as liste, because these terms overlap, but it is not referring to human trafficking. We can look to Aristophanes to see how Greeks actually described human traffickers, and we can see that that word is anthropodistis. So in any of these texts, if anybody really wanted to refer to human traffickers, they could simply use that word. The Greeks had a word for that concept. This word occurs in a vice list in 1 Timothy 1:10, anthropodiste, which is translated in the NASB as slave traders.
So,
Jeez, man.
pop quiz, Derek. What's the difference between bandit and pirate? What's the difference between listis and piratis?
Well, the pirate. So, in the context we were listening to, are you talking about in Julius Caesar's case, or?
Well, look, I realize this is dense, right? And
Yeah,
also, you can see that that example from Plutarch,
Yeah.
Plutarch's biography of Caesar, is very fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's something that Danny Jones has gone on to ask a lot of guests about. He's like, what's
Right.
going on in Plutarch? Because Plutarch seems to indicate that listis is a pirate, and a pirate is a human trafficker. And Jesus is saying he's not a listis, and therefore he's not a human trafficker. And so, and because he's denying it, he must be it. And it's just this merry-go-round.
Right.
So what's happening, if you go back and replay this and watch it carefully, I show all my sources. I'm not making this up. This is my interpretation of the sources. Listis is used, and Eustathius is commenting on this, that like if you look into Homer and you look in these ancient Greek sources, especially the older ones, they're using the word listis or liste in the plural, lestai, to just describe pirates, to describe people they're robbing. They're getting the booty, which is lia, and so the act of like that's piracy. You're pirating that booty. You're going around and you're attacking people. That comes from the word attack, and you're taking what's theirs and making it yours. You're just you're robbing people. You're a robber. Later on, at some point in the Hellenistic period, is the noun piratis is introduced to mean sea-based robbery, right? This word picks up steam, and sort of there starts to be a bifurcation between the liste, who were the robbers on land, the bandits, and then for the Romans they became like the revolutionaries,
and the water,
and then the pirates were the water robbers, right? The water bandits. And so you can see in Plutarch though that they're still kind of interchangeable, because he initially describes these pirates who are staging a naval blockade. They're 100% sea-based. They kidnap Caesar and ransom him and get money for it.
Right.
And then they're done. And then when Caesar goes out to go turn the tables and punish them, he refers to the same people that he originally referred to as pirates. He calls them bandits.
Right.
And he says that the money that they got from ransoming Caesar made that his booty, the lia. And so I think, and this is just my interpretation, I think what Plutarch is doing is he's saying that like basically Caesar was a listis. Like Caesar, not only did he flip the switch and like and pirate his pirates, right? Like the people who kidnapped him, he went against them and he made their money like his booty. He was a listis.
In a way, it's not even a derogatory thing when he's reversing the role. It's almost like if we were to tell a story in English and we were saying something like this. These bullies came and bullied the shit out of this kid or this guy. They bullied him really, really bad. The kid went and got his team and came back and bullied the absolute shit out of them. You're not going to interpret it as bad. You're going to go, no, he bullied them back, but righteously.
He bullied the bullies.
Yeah.
He bullied the bullies.
Yeah. Context-wise, that's why I was asking you when you were like, well, what's the difference? I'm like, okay, hold on. Which example and what are we actually talking about here? Because then you brought up an actual human trafficking word that's in the Greek. And it's like, dude, like that's legitimately trafficking. And
that's trading people in slaves. I mean, there's no sexual
like a modern implication, but yeah.
But that was the example. Those were the key examples that he's showing only in Greek. I'm showing them in Greek and English because I got nothing to hide and he has something to hide.
Right.
And that's the one. Like, if I don't get a chance to discuss this with Danny Jones later, like, look at that, Danny. Like, that's the example that you really, really wanted. That proves that listis is a trafficker. Like, it doesn't. Just look at it, read it. You can look it up. I think it's on Perseus Tufts. Nothing special, nothing going on here, nothing to see here.
And the island being a drug island, that one comment on that. The name of the island is Pharma. What's the name of the island again?